On January 6, 1995, two men walked into a Pittsburgh area bank in broad daylight. They carried firearms. They demanded cash. And they wore no masks because they believed lemon juice had made them invisible. The security cameras captured everything. Two faces fully exposed, glistening with citrus. It was, by any measure, the most confidently misguided disguise in criminal history. This is the story of MacArthur Wheeler, a man whose spectacular failure would eventually inspire one of the most important concepts in modern psychology. MacArthur Wheeler was a resident of McKeesport, Pennsylvania, a declining former steel town southeast of Pittsburgh along the Monongahela River. It was a place where industry had moved on and opportunity was scarce. Wheeler was described as 5 feet 6 inches tall and approximately 270 pounds. He was not a man who blended easily into a crowd, which makes his chosen method of concealment all the more bewildering. His accomplice was Clifton Earl Johnson, a man in his late 30s to early 40s. It was Johnson who originated the theory that would define this case, the lemon juice theory. Johnson's reasoning was simple. Lemon juice can be used as invisible ink on paper. Write with it, let it dry, and the writing disappears until heated. He concluded that if lemon juice made ink invisible on paper, it would make faces invisible to cameras. Wheeler was initially skeptical, so he tested the method. He covered his face in lemon juice and took a Polaroid photograph of himself. When the image developed, his face did not appear. He was convinced. Detectives later theorized that the Polaroid failed due to bad film, a maladjusted camera, or Wheeler accidentally pointing the camera away from his own face. Whatever the cause, it gave him all the confirmation he needed. On January 6, 1995, Wheeler and Johnson set their plan in motion. They applied lemon juice to their faces and headed to the Swissvale branch of Mellon Bank, arriving at approximately 2:47 in the afternoon. Neither man wore a mask. Neither wore a hat, a hood, or sunglasses. They walked in with lemon juice glistening on their fully exposed faces and proceeded to rob the bank at gunpoint. The security cameras at Mellon Bank captured clear images of both men's unmasked faces. The footage was crisp, unambiguous, and thoroughly unhelpful to anyone hoping to remain anonymous. The pair obtained approximately $5,200 from the Mellon Bank robbery. They then moved on to their second target. The second robbery took place at Fidelity Savings Bank in Brighton Heights, a residential neighborhood on Pittsburgh's north side. Again, no masks, no disguises, just lemon juice. Once again, the security cameras recorded everything with clinical indifference. Two faces, two men, fully visible. The lemon juice had done absolutely nothing. Wheeler reportedly complained that the lemon juice stung his eyes badly, causing him to squint and barely see during the robberies. The discomfort, it seems, only reinforced his belief that the substance was actively doing something. 2 banks, 2 robberies, 0 disguises, and surveillance footage so clear it might as well have been a professional portrait session. The investigation would not take long. Detectives had something bank robbery investigators rarely enjoy in such abundance: perfect surveillance photographs of both suspects' fully unmasked, lemon-glazed faces. Clifton Earl Johnson was arrested just 6 days after the robberies on January 12, 1995. With clear images and likely community tips, investigators moved quickly to identify him. Johnson cooperated with authorities. He would eventually plead guilty and agree to testify against Wheeler. But Wheeler himself remained at large. For over 3 months, MacArthur Wheeler walked free. A man whose unmasked face had been captured on multiple bank security cameras somehow remained unidentified to the public at large. Then, on April 19, 1995, Pittsburgh's Crime Stoppers segment aired Wheeler's surveillance photograph on the 11 o'clock news. His face, the one he believed was invisible, was broadcast into living rooms across the region. The response was immediate. Anonymous tipsters who recognized Wheeler from the broadcast began calling in. The lemon juice, it turned out, had not protected his identity from anyone. Less than an hour after the broadcast, at 12:10 a.m. on April 20, 1995, police arrived at Wheeler's residence in McKeesport. The invisible man had been found. When detectives showed MacArthur Wheeler the surveillance photographs, his own face, clearly visible, staring directly into the camera, he was genuinely stunned. His response has become one of the most quoted lines in criminal justice history. Wheeler looked at the photographs and exclaimed, "But I wore the lemon juice." He was not being sarcastic. He was not performing. Detectives concluded that Wheeler was not delusional and not on drugs. He was simply profoundly mistaken. Wheeler had genuinely believed, with the conviction of a man who had tested his hypothesis, that lemon juice rendered him invisible to cameras. His Polaroid test had confirmed it. The banks had proven otherwise. Wheeler initially contested the charges against him. Despite the surveillance footage, despite his accomplice's cooperation, despite his own inadvertent confession at arrest, he fought the case. But eventually, Wheeler changed his plea to guilty. The evidence was overwhelming, and his co-conspirator was prepared to testify against him. The lemon juice defense was not going to hold up. Clifton Earl Johnson was sentenced first. He pleaded guilty not only to the Mellon Bank robbery but also to 2 unrelated robberies from 1994. On October 27, 1995, he received a 5-year prison sentence. Johnson's cooperation and testimony against Wheeler earned him a significantly lighter sentence. He had originated the lemon juice idea, but his willingness to testify worked in his favor. On January 5, 1996, Judge Gary L. Lancaster sentenced MacArthur Wheeler for the Swissvale robbery. The charges for the Brighton Heights robbery were dropped. The sentence was 24.5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of probation. For all its absurdity, this had been an armed robbery, and the court treated it as one. The disparity in sentences was stark. Johnson received 5 years for cooperating. Wheeler, who fought the charges before ultimately pleading guilty, received nearly 5 times that. A brief account of the robberies appeared in the 1996 edition of the World Almanac under Offbeat News Stories. It might have ended there, a footnote, a curiosity, but someone was reading. Cornell University psychology professor David Dunning read about the Wheeler case in the 1996 World Almanac. He tracked down the original reporting in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and he began to ask a question that would reshape psychology. The question was this: could a person be so incompetent at something that they lack the very skills needed to recognize their own incompetence? Dunning believed the Wheeler case was a perfect illustration. Working with graduate student Justin Kruger, Dunning designed a series of studies testing this hypothesis. Their 1999 paper, Unskilled and Unaware of It, established what became known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. The concept that people with the least ability in a given area often have the greatest confidence became one of the most widely cited ideas in modern psychology. It reshaped how we understand overconfidence, expertise, and self-assessment. MacArthur Wheeler set out to rob 2 banks with lemon juice on his face. He ended up illustrating a fundamental truth about human cognition, that confidence without competence isn't just dangerous. Sometimes it's invisible only to the person who has it. MacArthur Wheeler's lemon juice disguise failed completely, but his spectacular confidence in a flawed idea gave the world a name for something we all recognize: the dangerous gap between what we think we know and what we actually do. A new case drops every day. Subscribe so you never miss one.